So I'm excited to have you here, JJ, today to talk about food, of course, and Food Access LA, who I know you work with. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about you as well as Food Access LA. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and ready to share whatever you would like.
Well, first, for those that are not familiar with you and the work that you're doing, maybe you could just kick us off with a little bit the highlights of what Food Access LA is and what
Absolutely.
you want people to know about it.
Yeah. So we are a nonprofit organization. We operate 9 farmers markets in Los Angeles, but we do a lot more than that. So we have a lot of programming centered around nutrition education and food distribution and benefits and incentives, supporting urban agriculture. So we really understand the importance of this whole food cycle and this food ecosystem that happens. And our farmers markets are a great way to display that, but they go out more into the community than just that one day that the farmers show up. So we are in our communities every week doing a lot of stuff, but mostly supporting our small food vendors and farmers and then making sure that people have access.
Awesome. And your target audience in general, is that is it like broader? Is it really focused on lower income and middle income families?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've actually been really refining that as a leadership team. Our main priority is mid to low income individuals that might not have the opportunity to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. They may not have a grocery store in their neighborhood, but equally of that, we also feel a very, very strong responsibility for our small food vendors and our farmers. And so everything we do is looking at like, how can we make sure that both of those populations are served? So a little
I
bit
think,
of both.
yeah, and I think it's super important because for the farmers, it gives them an opportunity to serve the community directly, and it enables the community to get to know their farmers and who they're buying from and what their process is, right? Like, what are they doing with the land? How are they feeding it? What are they using? And you create a stronger connection, I think, that way. I mean, I know I look for the same strawberry farmer every time I go to the farmer's market.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody has their favorite strawberries and tomatoes, and you have your favorite farmer. But that is absolutely right. And there's a connection there that is so much more. I mean, it's about knowing where your food comes from. It's about knowing that that food was picked probably the day before, so you know that it's nutrient rich. But then there's this community connection that we know also plays into health and wellness of an individual, of a family, of a whole community. And so when you're building that week after week after week, you see that benefits and that ROI comes out from like years of being in the community and showing up. And we have so many farmers that could very easily pay someone to show up at the market for them, but they don't because they love being there so much. They love watching people pick their food and smell it, and they love teaching kids about how to, choose a ripe watermelon, whatever it might be. That brings so much joy into everybody's life. So it's really a beautiful, I mean, I really, if I'm grumpy, I just go to a market. Like you can't not be happy there. Even if it's like rainy and cloudy, it's such a beautiful place to be.
It is, and I think it's also there's music at the one by me, and there's like local kids playing from the school, or there's somebody playing a guitar where they have some seats to sit down and eat. So I'm with you. I think it's super. It makes me smile.
Yeah, and it's like a community space, right? So like my favorite is that like around the holidays, kids from the school will come and practice their music that they're going to play for their parents, and they'll practice it there at the market, and it's adorable. And I mean, we all need a little bit of that in our lives, especially right now. So
And so I just want to touch on a couple things. So right now, with the government shutdown and all things that are happening around SNAP, you guys have really made quite a leap as to how to be able to help those folks have continue to have access. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
yeah, man, so this year has been a lot and we've learned a lot and we've been able to take what we've learned from each of these situations and apply it to now. And we 100% see this as an emergency food situation. People are anxious and scared and nervous and confused. And so, we knew right off the bat that not only were they going to come to us for answers, they were going to come to us needing help. And so we wanted to, again, because we serve both mid to low income individuals and families, but also those farmers, we wanted to make sure they were also being supported. So we dipped into our pockets as far as we could to get some emergency funding, and are able to continue with our market match program and supplementing that even further in an effort to replace or replenish those SNAP or EBT benefits. We might not be able to do it all for every single family, but we're doing as much as we can and getting it out there as much as possible. And that way, it's a way to also allow people to shop with autonomy and dignity, and they're able to choose what's best for them and their family. And they're not having to, stand in line at the food bank, which they might actually have to do some days too, but at least this is an opportunity that they didn't have to do it that day. So we're getting out as much as we can. It's hard because it's a lot of administrative work, and it's a lot of guessing right now because there's no systems in place. But we're happy to do it, and we really wanted to do it for our communities, and it's very important.
It's very important, and I think it's really it's pivotal for people because it could be the difference between eating and not eating, or not having access to something that is good for them and then having to rely on something. And I don't want to call out, different things that I necessarily judge as not good,
Right,
but
right.
but I think it enables people to make a better choice for themselves.
It 100% does, and it's I can't imagine what it would be like to all of a sudden have something that you've planned for and you've prepared for just taken away from you. Especially if you had children to feed. Like, I can't imagine the fear. So as much as we can, we want to be able to alleviate that from people and take away some of that anxiety. So we did a lot of no questions asked. We, provided food when, it was available and we could just give it straight away, or whether it was through the market match dollars, however we could show up for that community, we did. And we're stretched thin. Like, we already went through the fight. We did this with the fires. We did this during the ice raids. It's been a lot this year. So I know we're not the only nonprofit that's feeling that, but I will say that to turn around and see the value that that's brought to our communities and to our farmers, like, it's worth it. Like, we are willing to give up whatever we need so that we can make sure we're keeping these systems going and these local food economies strong.
I mean, I think what you're doing, it's a tall task, and it's a tall order, it's a tall task, and it forces us to think out of the box. It forces us to push boundaries, and really get creative. So I'm curious, for those other nonprofits, for those other, whether it's Agriculture Institute of Marin and in Marin, or whomever, with your experience doing this, and I get that you had to be scrappy. What are some of the things that you learned that maybe you could share with them, so that if they were inspired by what you're doing and wanted to create systems similar to this, they might have a good idea?
Yeah, and we love the people at AIM. That is one of the silver linings of this. I will say that people are coming out, like, we're having to be creative. We're having to talk more. We're having to coordinate more and collaborate, and it's in a way that is kind of beautiful. So we're talking. We're putting farmers in touch with each other. So if there is an organization that maybe they normally just do bread and eggs on Wednesdays, and they want to expand that, we get them in touch with our farmers. Like, we're not going to gatekeep. We're going to let them, coordinate that at whatever best fair price is for the farmer. There's a lot of opportunity there to build some new programs. So we've seen some collaboration between people who are feeding the unhoused and our farmers now that we hadn't had before. Mm-hmm. So we are, and those are kind of just starting to develop. But I will say it also just takes some, like you said, scrappy, but it also just takes some, I call them getter doners, which is a silly term, but like, it takes people literally just standing up and starting to get stuff done. And that's really the thing that we learned from the beginning of this year. I have an amazing team, and when we had an idea, we just did it. Like, we kind of learned as we went. We didn't wait for it to be perfect, because it wasn't going to be, and we needed to act now. And so that, I think, is the number one thing I would say that we've learned is, when something needs to be done, you just get up and do it. And that has made a huge difference. And because of that, now we're ready to do it. We've done it. I feel like we're veterans now. So the minute something needs to be done, we just get up and do it. And I know that sounds probably too simple, but I don't know. It just hasn't been. I think it's because I have amazing people, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would imagine your team is amazing. But as you're saying this, I'm like imagining all this red tape. You know, oftentimes when you're working in organizations, nonprofits or otherwise, there's a lot of red tape. So how did that play into it for you?
That's a really good question. So we did have a little bit of red tape with some of our like government funding, and we just made the hard decision to start moving away from that because it was really hindering us. So again, we have wonderful partners, and we also just called out to our community, and we were, kind of like, hey, some of you have more, some of you don't have. If you have more, can you give? And we'll distribute that to the people who need it. And so we did a lot of really grassroots fundraising to be able to support what we were doing. Again, amazing team, but our farmers are also amazing. And so they were willing to, we always want to pay them fair prices. Like that's
Mhm.
non-negotiable, right? But 9 times out of 10, they were like, we put 10 extra boxes in for you. So they were doing stuff like that. And I think, again, maybe even through COVID and this last year, I think we've all learned what red tape is important and in place for a reason, and then what isn't. And it's not that we don't want to value processes and procedures and safety. Of course we do, but there's also sometimes when, again, you just have to get stuff done, and we got to move this food and we got to feed people. And we already vet all of our farmers and vendors like from the get-go, so we know everybody we work with is safe and on the up and up. So that groundwork was already done. And then we just getting food to people. Like there's just nothing that's going to stop us from doing that, I guess.
And so now, as we're sort of here, we are. It's I don't know how many days now we're into this, but we're far enough into this. You're seeing things. I'm imagining shift, um, and you're continuing to get more people. I would imagine. So how are you addressing that?
Yeah, so it was interesting because there was the dip, and we were nervous about promoting. We didn't want to overwhelm our staff or overwhelm the farmers, so we kind of um, did like a subtle, like, if you need help, show up, we're going to be here for you. And then when we felt like we had that solid, we were like, all right, we can handle this, we just started promoting it really word of mouth, because we knew that was the best way to spread it, like to spread information. And we started also being really clear about what we knew was happening, and what we didn't know, and trying to really correct some of the misinformation that was going out. So a lot of it was really boots on the ground, grassroots, talking to people and making sure they knew what to do. And then we also just were in constant contact with our team. How's it going? Do you need extra support? Do you need someone else to show up? How are the farmers doing? So a lot of communication, and everybody, it's just worked well. It's flowed well. And I will say, I think, whether this sounds kind of woo woo or what, but I think it's because everybody has good intentions and everybody like wants the best. So it's really been fairly smooth. I mean, there have definitely been days when we were like, oh, what's the right decision? Do we, make a big broadcast about this, or do we only do it for these markets, or, whatever the decision might have been. And I think just because everybody has the same objectives and goals, it makes it really easy to make those decisions and execute whatever it is we're doing.
And so, as you're making these decisions and trying to figure out what to do next, what are some of the key factors that you take into consideration?
It's a lot, right? It's kind of like a
I mean, to me, it seems overwhelming. So I'm like, okay, how do you pare that down and decide what's most important?
what's happening. So we consider, I mean, it's kind of like a, a Venn diagram, sort of like how does everybody overlap? And, it's like 20 circles, but, what's being affected? Like, what's the goal? What do we need to address here? And so like, in this case, it was like, how do we get dollars or food into people's hands that is also supporting the farmers? Like, how is the best way to do this? So, starting with that objective in mind, we sit down as a leadership team and we, brainstorm ideas, and we hold each other accountable for which ideas are going to really truly match our mission. And we think through potential problems. And we also, at the end of the day, agree that nothing's going to be perfect. And so let's get as close as we can. And a lot of times it comes down to like a roll call vote of like, do we want to do this or this? And we go through those decisions. And I will say that, again, because everybody has the same objectives in mind, there's details that are discussed. But you would think in these times of really high tension and anxiety, and I have a team of all women, you would think that there would just be a lot of it, like a lot of emotion, and there is, but it's not directed at each other. Like we do a really good job of like making sure that we are headed in the right direction. So we just kind of balance those out. So if something just seems out of balance, we'll adjust it. Like, is a $5 match enough? No, but like 50 is too much. We can't keep up with that. Or will this overwhelm staff? Yes. Okay, then maybe we do it like this, and that'll be a little less, overwhelming for them. So a lot of balancing and weighing and looking at that Venn diagram and seeing what can we get as close to perfect in the middle.
And so now, as time continues to elapse,
Yeah.
what are your plans? How do you even begin to plan what the next few months looks like when we have so much uncertainty and so many things that we just don't know?
It's really hard to get ahead of anything right now. And it's even hard. It's hard to have the time, but even mentally, it's hard to not think. It's hard to just think about anything else. I mean, it is. So we are, we, we're just kind of almost not planning. And I don't want to say we're not planning, but we have seen that like, I'm not going to be able to predict what's happening in 6 weeks or 2 months. So
Mhm.
we are going to take it week by week. And we, again, all agree that we may have to reevaluate, we may have to change things as we go. So we're not going to make any permanent decisions right now, even if it has nothing to do with this. Like we're just not going to. We're not going to start any big projects because we don't have the mental time or energy. And we just kind of accept that right now we may not be able to have this concrete strategic 5-year plan because we have no idea what that means. And we will get back to that, I do believe, but we're kind of planning to be uncomfortable with the unknown, which is hard and it's kind of scary. It's a lot scary actually, but that's where we are. I feel like this is also kind of a sad thing. We're like used to this chaos now, which is not good.
Yeah.
But we also are really, I am trying to be in modeling this, and I'm trying to get my team to be very intentional about taking breaks and stepping away. And they're doing that. We just had a team that went and ran a half marathon together. We had some people that went camping this weekend. I went out of town for a little bit. So, and really not feeling guilty about stepping away. So that's not really planning exactly, but that's what we're doing right now to protect ourselves so that when we're ready to plan, we can, you know, basically roll up our sleeves and start planning. But right now we just can't. We just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for you guys who also you probably have a plan that you had that was existing,
Yeah.
and that sort of gone by the wayside now, right? You're like, okay, well, we need to address this. So this
Yeah.
is what's happening. So forget it. Plans are. There's a saying about it, but I'm really bad at repeating plan. That
I know what you're talking about, but same. Yeah.
I don't know. Some stuff is broken. I don't really know.
They're not happening. I will say that. There you go.
They're
It's
not
not.
happening. So I know that you're really making sure that the farmers are getting paid and that the community is getting access to food. What are some of the greatest challenges that you faced in the foreseeable future that you're concerned with? Maybe the
So,
top three.
yeah, so one of the top things that I'm concerned about is I see this opportunity to really strengthen our local food systems and to really put the support into small food businesses and farmers. And I am worried that we're missing this opportunity. We learned during COVID that our food systems were broken and nothing changed, and we're learning that lesson again. And I just feel like it has to be at a local level that we address this problem, because we are obviously cannot count on any federal situation that's going to address anything.
Right.
So stop trying, stop waiting for that to happen. It's not going to. So that is my concern right now, is that we're not making the best of this opportunity. That's my first concern. My second concern is farmers and anybody in the nonprofit world. I mean, everybody really, but farmers are worn out. They are tired. They are exhausted. We are seeing farmers get to retirement age and they have no one to pass their farm on to. What's going to happen when we do not have farmers growing our food? And that keeps me awake at night sometimes. I've tried to grow tomatoes. It's hard. And man, when I grow one, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and that, that's it goes into one salad. Like it's hard work being a farmer, and we just don't value it. And we just don't realize, we do not know. I work with farmers all the time. I go to farm visits. I talk with them. I still couldn't really tell you what it's like to be a farmer. It's a
Right.
lot of work. And so I just am worried that we're going to be losing them. So those are kind of two big overarching worries that I have, concerns that I have. And then kind of on a short term, smaller level, I am just worried about the health and wellness of our communities. I feel like the stress and the anxiety that is happening now, coupled with the lack of dense, nutritious foods and access to that, um, I feel like we're going to see long term impacts from that 10 years down the road. And so, I just worry that, can we stave that off enough? Can we make sure people are getting what they need to stay healthy, mentally, emotionally, physically, all of those things now, so that 10 years down the road, we're not still dealing with these impacts? So those are my top three concerns, I would say.
That would keep me up at night. Like that's a lot. And to take that responsibility on yourself as part of the
Yeah,
solution seems overwhelming. It
it
seems
is.
overwhelming.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
sure how you break it down to feel like you're addressing those things, but I'd love to like, do you look at this and say, okay, so for number one, here's two ways that we can deal with this or address this situation to maybe not solve the problem, but help the problem? I don't know. I don't know any other way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do look, like I said, there's lots of silver linings. We have a lot of great people in our corner that are in this fight with us. I think there's a lot of advocacy work that is being done. I am very grateful to live in California, where I feel like if I do this advocacy work, it is going to actually make a difference. But I do think there are, yeah, you break it into chunks. For example, there's a local food purchasing agreement. That is a work in progress that has been done. It's an agreement that's about to run out, and we want to renew it. So we see that it's been done. We know that it can continue, and so focusing on that for a day or two kind of gives you a little bit of hope, and it's a manageable situation, right? Just encouraging people to go to the markets, like that's something simple that I can do and remind people, even that don't live in California. Or like my daughter, I called her the other day and like, do you have your plans to go to the market? Like, make sure you're buying from your local farmers. So little things like that, even if it's just one or two people, that gives me a little bit of hope, and like, okay, we are out here. We are going to make this happen. And then we do things like, we haven't even touched on doing actual, food distributions. We've talked a lot about our markets, but we will do things intentionally to make sure that our farmers' food is being purchased, even if it's not at the market. And we'll get that out to a food bank or a partner that's giving out food boxes. One of the Senate districts here is doing a big food drive, and they're handing out boxes from our farmers. So there are other things like that that are happening that, I can take a deep breath a little bit, like, okay, we are doing some good things to address this problem.
And it sounds like you are doing good things, but it just sounds like it's a really big problem and we can't fix everything overnight. We can only encourage people to go support the farmers, and supporting the farmers supports the nutrition and support and creating access, and then even creating those relationships like you were talking about the food bank with the farmers to make sure the food is sold. I mean, all so integral to make sure that these systems continue to work and feed, quote unquote, both the farmers and the community.
Yes, no, you're totally right. It does feed you are feeding the farmers, Yeah, I think there's, as an individual, there's a lot you can do. And yeah, it takes a little bit of extra effort because now you got to go to, the store to get your, non-perishable items, your, dish soap and whatnot. But God, the reward of going to a farmer's market is just so worth it. And there's CSA options. So if you feel like you can't go to the market, or the market in your neighborhood is on a day when you can't go, there are options. There are things that you can do to still support that without taxing yourself. And so, I encourage each individual to take responsibility and do what they can do.
Awesome. JJ, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. For those folks that are curious to learn more about options from Food Access LA, what's the best way for them to connect or learn more?
Yeah, following us on Instagram at Food Access LA or through our website at foodaccessla.org. We post regularly and keep everybody up to date on what we're doing.
And of course, we don't want to leave out those people that maybe can help, that might be listening, and that might be able to provide a resource, whether financial or otherwise. It really doesn't matter. But how might they get in touch, and who should they be connecting with?
Yeah, they can email me directly. I love to hear from people. It's Jennifer, Jennifer, at foodaccessla.org. And all of that information is also on our website. There's a donate button if you want to remain anonymous. We welcome I love hearing from people. That's one of my favorite things is to have like personal emails. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was so great. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in, because without them we wouldn't really have a community.